North Carolina has always known hurricanes, but the storms of the last decade are rewriting the state's history. From Florence to Helene, records are falling fast.
Rainfall totals are climbing higher, flooding reaching farther, and the costs growing heavier. Tonight, meteorologist Year Haley looks at 1 year after Helene. North Carolina's rain records tell the story. Florence in 2018 set the statewide mark at nearly 36 inches. Helene followed in 2024 with more than 31, the most ever measured in the mountains. 3 of the 7 heaviest storms on record have come in just the last decade: Florence, Helene, and Fred. And more than a century later, the mid-July hurricane, which led to the Great Flood of 1916, still makes the list. In recent years, the trend has become impossible to ignore.
These storms are getting wetter. They are capable of dropping heavier rain over a shorter time period than we've seen in the past.
Helene drove that point home, bringing rainfall and flooding unlike anything the mountains had ever seen.
Helene exceeded all of those events. The river levels, for instance, on the French Broad River, on the Swannanoa River, around Asheville, those were all higher than we had ever seen before, even going back to that 1916 storm.
The cost echoed Helene's impacts. The most recent estimate from the North Carolina governor's office is $60 billion, which is more than 3 times the cost of Florence.
It is our costliest hurricane on record. It is our deadliest hurricane on record. So even when we compare it to some of the more recent events like Florence in eastern North Carolina, Helene has more than tripled the damage cost from Hurricane Florence. It is well above any other recent storms in terms of death. So I think from that climatological side, it is hard to find a comparison for Helene just because of that scale and because of the mass level of destruction that it brought in the state.
And Helene is part of a bigger pattern across the state.
I would say probably half of North Carolina has now seen their worst hurricane in these past 10 years.
Davis says communities have to think differently about where to rebuild.
Look at areas that have flooded from Helene or that were very close to flooding, and maybe don't rebuild as much in those areas. Maybe try to look at higher elevation sites or areas outside of those historical floodplains.
1 year later, Helene is part of a larger story, a series of storms that have rewritten North Carolina's hurricane history and revealed new trends that are shaping the state's future.